Good afternoon, everyone, to the first and hopefully of many Breaking Bread, a New Dawn for Jews and Muslims. Let's begin the program, and then some of our speakers are coming in from long distances, including around the world, the Emirates and New York, so they're coming in there. But we can start now.
I am Anila Ali. I stand before you as a Muslim American Pakistani, friend of the Jewish people. Inshallah, inshallah. I'm here to affirm to my Abrahamic brothers and sisters that you are not alone. The Holy Quran repeatedly expresses reverence for the Torah and praises the Jewish people. There is a chapter in the Quran, it's called Bani Israel. Bnei Israel insists that the children of Israel will be gathered from exile back into their homeland. And let me tell you, Islamic law explicitly forbids attacking civilians, kidnapping babies, grandmothers. All of this violates the core of our religion. And hiding behind civilians is both evil and cowardly. And teaching our children, our youth on campuses to hate Jews is unforgivable. I have been to Israel 3 times, and I have seen for myself how Muslims can gain by making peace with Israel, partnering with the Jewish people and focusing on a future together.
I'm Anila Ali, and I stand here in front of you to affirm our shared Abrahamic lineage. I stood with you in 2023. I stand with you today, and I will stand with you forever. My dear friends, Muslims, Jews, Christians, and everyone, we are here today to break bread in a monumental gathering where one of my Arab brothers is coming all the way from UAE, United Arab Emirates, a country right now being pounded by the Iranian regime. My other brother, Sheikh Musa Jame, is the Imam from the Bronx, coming all the way from New York to stand with you, to break bread with you, and to show you you are not alone. Perhaps I was alone that day, but today I am also not alone. I have you, and I want to thank you for showing up, for being here. Look at the people next to you and pat yourselves on the shoulder and say, we are together, we made it. We will not be silenced. And I want to thank my partners since 9/11, the Anti-Defamation League. Yes. I remember after 9/11 when we were called terrorists, when the mayor of my city called us Taliban, I turned to my ADL partners. Sadly, some things have not changed in California, but we're here to change them. You may ask, why are we doing this? Why are all these Muslim leaders standing up despite the risk to all our lives? all of us here. You have Soraya Deen, your own Californian Muslim women speakers leader. Why are we doing this? And I want to tell you why today, as Muslims, we are standing up. Because we are Muslims. And because we know our religion. And we are sick and tired of seeing our religion and our sacred words like Allahu Akbar being used to perpetrate evil, to kill, to murder innocent people. Yes, our religion has been hijacked, and that is why Muslims like Lo'ai, Imam Musa Drame, Soraya, me, Alia, many Muslims are standing up to this. And we're doing it passionately because it's not easy to do this because you're doing it within your community. So when my dear friend from Orange County, Alan, reached out and said, let's do this breaking bread event together, I thought about it. This is my home, California. This is where my kids live and were raised. And I came here from Saudi Arabia 25 plus years ago to make this my home. This place matters to me. I said, Alan, do you think we can pull it off? We talked to ADL, and here we are today. But you are not alone, and I am not alone. And alhamdulillah for that. Let's talk about anti-Semitism. Why are we as Muslims fighting anti-Semitism? And I'll tell you why I'm fighting it personally. Because my people are suffering. They are suffering from this cancer. They are consumed by this cancer of anti-Semitism. And it's taken them over. They are so angry. This virus is making them hollow inside. It's eating them up. And it's leaving nothing intact inside of them. That's what it's doing to my people. This anti-Semitism on the campuses in California, on social media, and the rest of the US, it's teaching our young people, Muslim kids, that you can never solve your problems. You must find a scapegoat. And what better scapegoat than the Jews in Israel? And unfortunately, political and religious leaders are also using this hate, promoting this hate. We will not allow them to continue. We are going to speak up, and that is why we came to California. We will not allow this hatred to spread. We will not be silent. But let's think about this. What a sad life they're leading. The young people are feeling so disempowered that they cannot find a solution, that you cannot have a dialogue, that if we come together, my brother from UAE, my brothers from ADL, and all of you, and we break bread together, that it somehow threatens their lies, the empires of untruths. That's what it is. Because how do they operate? They operate with anger, they're loud, and they're violent. And that's not constructive for our children. That is not constructive for our future. It is a futile endeavor. It has eaten up their thinking. And it's not allowing them to reason. They shut us down. They don't want to reason. They don't have any arguments. And then they fabricate history. They make up facts. There was a journalist, a Pakistani journalist, who went to Israel and saw the truth. And he was talking to another journalist. And this journalist, so clouded by lies, he said, but Jews They don't have a connection to Israel. And yes, exactly, they look foolish. And then they talk about justice, they talk about resistance. How many processions have you seen on the streets in the United States for the people of Iran? Zero. That's their sense of justice. Perhaps what they really want is to keep the Palestinians in a perpetual cycle of hate, violence, because they want to use them. If you really care about the Palestinians, you would empower them with peace. You would say, let's sit down together, let's break bread. Let's have challah together, pita bread and hummus together. But sadly, my people are very engulfed in this victimhood. And I did see this. I bear witness to it for 25 years that I came to this beautiful state of California. And I just wanted to be a cool Muslim. And unfortunately, 9/11 happened. I went into the mosque. And it was the first time after 9/11 I heard these organizations and these agents of chaos say, America, Yahud, Israel. And I turned around and I said, what? They're all coming for us. You live here. And I knew what their agenda was. And that's why they have been quiet and not saying a word for the Iranian people, executed by their own evil regime. That's why they have been quiet when the Sudanese have been dying, Muslims killing Muslims. There's so many Syrians were killed by Muslims killing Muslims. They didn't say a word. It didn't matter. But the Yahud is their enemy. That's their scapegoat. And yes, I am a Muslim, and I say it to the people who want to boycott us. I tell them, I'm a Muslim, and I do represent Muslims. They're just not like you. I open up the Quran, and I know what I see. It's the same thing that my grandmother taught me about Bani Israel, about Ahle Kitab. In the Quran, Allah tells the story of Musa alayhi salam, Passover story. Moses, Allah told Moses in the Quran, peace be upon him, O my people, enter the Holy Land, which Allah has assigned to you in Surah Ma'idah 5:21. Right? We know this. It's a divine instruction to Prophet Muhammad, my beloved Prophet, peace be upon him. Allah's telling him the story of the great Prophet Moses, peace be upon him. Go to the Holy Land. That is your land. But do you know what Allah is doing for Muslims? God, Allah, is countering anti-Semitism from ever happening, and He is doing it directly in the Quran. Allah says to Prophet Muhammad and the Muslims that I told Moses, peace be upon him, O children of Israel, even before there was Israel, Allah is saying this, O children of Israel, remember my favor, which I have bestowed upon you, and that I preferred you to the worlds. Surah Baqarah 247. Perhaps they don't like that Allah chose the Jewish people, Bani Israel. I don't know. But my Prophet of Islam, peace be upon him, he prayed towards Jerusalem in the tradition of Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him. He didn't have a problem. Because Prophet Abraham is just as beloved to God. He is known as Khalil Allah, God's best friend in the Quran. Musa alayhi salam, Kalamullah. God spoke to him. They have titles in our religion. And then after 16 months, in Allah's divine wisdom, God said to Muhammad, peace be upon him, don't pray towards Jerusalem. Your holy land is Kaaba, Medina, Saudi Arabia. In God's wisdom, God knew we could have problems later. So Allah said to Muhammad, peace be upon him, pray towards Makkah. That's our holy land. He didn't want us to fight. Never. All of our religious festivals come from the Abrahamic lineage. Passover. I was in Saudi Arabia and my Arab friends, they were fasting 9th and 10th. There is a verse, Al-Shu'ara, for the liberation of the Jewish people. They fast because Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, when he went to Medina, he saw the Jewish tribes fasting and he said, why are you fasting? And he started that tradition. I learned that in Saudi Arabia. But you know what's happening around us. Sadly, my people have run away from oppressive countries. All of these majority Muslim countries that don't allow human beings to thrive, women to thrive. They have oppressive regimes, they have misogynistic societies, and they have unjust systems. We came to America for freedom, and yet we have brought that same old corrupt mindset, and we don't want to grow. We just don't want to grow. And when a few of us speak, we raise our diverse voices. They condemn us, they boycott us, and they're even afraid of breaking bread with us. So imagine how angry and how actually disempowered these people are. But by being here, coming from the United Arab Emirates, coming from New York, and wherever you have driven from, I say to you, L'chaim. So this is to life. Muslims love life. We love life. God, it's sacred. God has given us life. We love to love our neighbors. And here's to that friendship and to that life, to a stronger Muslim-Jewish partnership. So I say to each and every one of you, thank you for coming. And say to your neighbor, we are all in this together. We will not allow them to win. Thank you.
And I think we all love Anila, don't we? I just want to briefly just say my name. I'm going to introduce someone who Anila just was referencing, Loai Al-Sharif. My name, I'm not Loai. I don't have 700,000 followers on the internet. Maybe, what, 700? No, not even. 70? But I'm Alan Buenas, and I'm going to bring in a few more remarks, but I do want to introduce Loai Al-Sharif, who is here from the Emirates. Loai is, I personally followed Loai, one of those 700,000, and know how remarkable he is. And when I talked to Anila about this program, I said, Anila, by any chance, do you know Loai Al-Sharif? Because he's pretty good, really, really good. And she says, Alan, I know him. I said, well, I'd like to put him on our program. And she said, well, sure, here's his number. So I figured Loai is in the Emirates, which is like, 12 hours away. And I timed it just perfectly, that I would call at maybe right before, after dinner, And so I call, and I get this voice, who is this? I said, well, Loy, you don't know me. And I said, I hope I'm not waking you up. It is like 3 o'clock in the Emirates. He says, yeah, but it's 3 in the morning in New York. I said, oh my God. So with that, Loy has come this way. He's for us in this theater. He is here. He is our special. All of our guests are special honored guests. We'll introduce Musa Drama, Sheikh Musa Drama, also coming from the Imam from the Bronx, and we have other honored guests. We have Rabbi Peter Levy. We have Rabbi Erez Sherman from Sinai Temple. Many of you may know Rabbi Sherman and probably go to Sinai. But I don't want to hold Loy up. You might be jet lagged. I don't know. But here we are, all good. So everyone, give it up for Loy Al-Sharif.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for coming, and I'm so honored to be here. And I was so happy to hear my dear sister Anila, and I wish that the majority of Muslims were like that. But I just want to tell you one thing: everything she said is true. Everything she said is true. But I want to tell you, since I was like a radical when I was young, if someone would tell me there are verses in the Quran that the children of Israel are the chosen one, and this is the land of Israel, I know how radicals now debunk this between quotes, which is false, and I know how to debunk back. So usually, when someone tells you the story of that the children of Israel are the chosen people, which is true, this is in the Quran, and there are some verses after that the Quran says that God should never be questioned while his slaves like us are questioned. God should never be asked, why did you choose Abraham? Why did you choose the Jews? Why did you choose Isaac? Why did you choose Ishmael? God should never be questioned. It is his personal preference. God chose the children of Israel. But of course, you know what radical Muslims say? But these Jews are Ashkenazi white European from East Europe or from Vienna. These are not the children of Israel. As if the children of Israel were alive, he would say, I approve you to go to the land of Israel. As if. And then, when she said that this is the land of Israel, and then you know what Muslims would say? Yeah, but they were punished for 40 years. You know how I counter that? Yeah, they were punished for 40 years because they were not Zionists. Yes, the story in the Torah is the same story of the Quran. God said in the Quran that they are forbidden to enter the land for 40 years. You know why for 40 years? You don't know. The Quran doesn't tell the detail. The Torah tells the detail. Because God told Moses, after Moses sent 12 spies, from each tribe there was a spy. 10 spies reported back to Moses, we're not going to enter the land. Only 2 spies, Joshua and Caleb. Joshua from the tribe of Ephraim, son of Joseph, and Caleb from the son of Yehuda, from the tribe of Yehuda. Only Joshua and Caleb were allowed to survive with the next generation to enter the land. But the 10 other spies, for each day, God said, they will be deprived a year. They spied for 40 days, they were deprived 40 years. So I say, because they were not Zionists, they were deprived from entering the land. When Muslims hear this, they go, no, what are you saying? I'm saying, this is the truth. This is the truth. So unfortunately, what we say is not the mainstream Muslim belief, but it is the truth. Same thing applies to our Christian friends. Those Christians who stand with Israel are opposed by other Christians who suddenly come with the replacement theory that I don't know replacement theory what Jesus would say about it, because honestly, I'll be very honest with you, those Christians, I barely believe that they know what Jesus said. Jesus was a proud Jew, wore tzitzit, and his words were, with all due respect, harsher than any right-wing Israeli. I'll give you an example. I know this sounds crazy to people because people are not educated. Imagine if an Israeli walks into the land of Israel, meets a Samaritan, like the lady that he met in Sukhar, and she told him, why do you worship God on this mountain? Our forefathers worshiped God on Mount Gerizim. And you know the story, when the Assyrians when the Assyrians took the Israelites into captivity, and when they returned back, they intermarried some of the monotheistic Israelite faith that we now call Judaism. The name of the religion is actually what I call the Israelite monotheistic faith. Now we call it Rabbinic Judaism after the temple, but the real faith was corrupted. So because of political disputes, the Israelites could not go to the south, so they changed some texts. Those are the Samaritans. They changed the text from Mount Zion to Mount Gerizim. Why Mount Gerizim? Because Mount Gerizim is a holy mountain. It is the mountain that Joshua, when he entered the land, he partitioned the tribes. 6 tribes on Mount Gerizim, 6 tribes on Mount Ebal, the mount of the blessings and the mount of the curses. And they couldn't go to Mount Zion, so this is why they changed it to Mount Gerizim. So the lady was telling Jesus that we should worship, our forefathers worshiped God on this mountain. Look what Jesus said. You worship God on a mountain that you do not know, while we worship God on a mountain that we know, because salvation comes from the Jews. Yeah, tell that to Mr. Tucker Carlson and all those replacement theory fellas. And by the way, I want to say one thing I have to say it, about that Israel believes in greater Israel and stuff like that. I'm really sorry, I'm so excited. I love speaking about the Bible, by the way. Biblical history is the reason why I am in love with Israel as a Muslim. When Tucker Carlson asked the Israeli ambassador, I wish the Israeli ambassador, Mr. Huckabee, and he's a great person, I wish he had the knowledge that would debunk Tucker Carlson when he said, so you believe that Israel from the Euphrates to the Nile? I wish he could tell him, Mr. Tucker Carlson, since you're speaking about the Bible, you know the Bible so well? You know that Moses, when he was taken from the Exodus, in the book of Exodus, you know that God told Moses, do not settle in the land of the Moabites, because this is not your land. Do not settle in the land of Amalek. This is not your land. The land of Israel, and please take it from now on, the borders are very known. From Dan to Beersheba, from Yam HaMelech to Yam HaGadol. This is the greater Israel. If you ask anyone about the greater Israel, they will tell you, of course, the greater Israel is the Israel that David established. So the only dispute is the West Bank, Yehuda v'Shimron. Oh, by the way, Jesus called it Yehuda v'Shimron. So those who call it Yehuda v'Shimron are Zionists. You don't want to know what Jesus called it. Anyway, but this is the truth that many people, I don't know, they don't read. Either they don't read or they just want to be very comfortable with what they know. So, because I used my brain, Baruch Hashem, thank God, I used my brain, and I was willing to say that whatever I learned was wrong, I will say it's wrong, and whatever I learned was right. Not everything I learned when I was young was wrong. Not everything I learned was right. But there is undisputed fact. The land of Israel, from Dan to Beersheba, Yam HaMelech, the Dead Sea, what we call now the Dead Sea, to Yam HaGadol is the land of Israel. And it's a Jewish land. Simple, basic, and elementary. Simple, basic, and elementary. And this is like what American journalists say. This is land theft. Look at the map. Even that greater Israel is not visible in the map. But you know why they're so jealous of Israel? You know why? Because that tiny land and that tiny nation is a very successful nation, gave the world so many blessings. I saw them with my own eyes when I visited there. This tiny land gave the world Waze, the most used navigational app in Saudi Arabia. Gave the world cherry tomatoes. Gave the world ICQ, which is the foundation of so many TCP/IP apps like we have now today. When the CEO of NVIDIA said, we have 6,000 families in Israel that we take good care of them, this is one extra reason why I love NVIDIA. I'm insanely in love with NVIDIA, but that's an extra reason. 6,000 families. Why those 6,000 families are not in Egypt? Why aren't they in Saudi Arabia? Why? Why aren't they in other Arab states? So this tiny land, because it is so successful, its GDP is higher than 3 Arab states combined, it is envied. That is the truth that no one wants to talk about. And I always say to my Israeli friends and to my Jewish friends, Israel should have 2 arms in building its future. One arm, high-tech. High-tech is important. High-tech technology, agriculture, cybersecurity. And the second arm is its cultural heritage, hatarbut, the heritage that it holds. Israel should always bring light to the world. And I'm saying this as a Muslim because it zero contradicts my faith. Of course, when I hear Muslims say, no, it contradicts your faith. What's your name, my friend? Yunus, and I hate Israel. Yunus, my friend, your name comes from the Greek Eonas, which is the deviation from the Hebrew Yonah, which means in Hebrew, dove. You are named after one of the most Zionist Jewish prophets. No, we know Yunus in the Quran. Don't try to now boggle me. The story in the Quran that he got the message, he rejected it, and then he was punished, and then God forgave him. Yeah, but you don't know why he rejected. You don't know why he rejected the message. Because he said to God, how can you send me to the enemies of my people, Israel? How are you asking me to go to Nineveh, the capital of Assyria, to deliver them mercy? And I know you would forgive them. I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go. I'm going to go to the Haifa. I'm going to take the boat to go to Tarshish, modern day Spain. I'm going to escape you. I'm not going to go to... No. And this is the greatest proof that the God of Israel wants salvation even to non-Jews. And this young fella is named after this prophet who refused to take the message to the enemies of Israel, and he doesn't know what he's named after. Like 1.8 billion Muslims, I guarantee you. And I always make fun of those who are named David, go to the protests and say Jerusalem is the capital of Palestine, while they are named after the very king who proclaimed it as the capital of Israel. It was not President Donald J. Trump who proclaimed Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, really. It was King David, a prophet and a king in Islam. People are ignorant about that and take it from someone who was on the other side of the river, seen this abyss of darkness and overcome it with knowledge, facts, and the truth. This is why I am invincible to those Muslims who are very confused about what they know and what they don't know. And Anila is right. God disconnected this connection with Jerusalem for us as Muslims. If a Jew or a Christian would come to me and say, Mecca is our holy land, or Medina, I would be the first one who would stand against them. But Jerusalem? No, Jerusalem is not ours. Mecca and Medina, ours. And the Prophet died. Those who say, how can you be a Muslim when Jerusalem is occupied? Habibi, Prophet Muhammad died and Jerusalem was under the Byzantine Empire. Come on, I mean, use your brain a bit. These guys who make Jerusalem as, by the way, Jerusalem was never significant in Islam. Prophet Muhammad died, he had 100,000 companions. How many of them visited Jerusalem? I counted them. 26. 26. And they visited Jerusalem for other reasons, not only for religious reasons. And at that time, there was no Beit HaMikdash, there was no Al-Aqsa Mosque. Abd al-Malik ibn Marwan, please remember this name very well. Abd al-Malik ibn Marwan is like Yaruba'am. You know Yaruba'am in the Bible? He was the one, he had the problem with the south, and he said he came with the idea that I will build another temple to deviate the Israelites from going to the south. Our Yaruba'am is Abd al-Malik ibn Marwan. Abd al-Malik was a great statesman, but a very failed religious Muslim. He couldn't go to Mecca because Al-Zubayr, please mark these names and write them down and do your research. Al-Zubayr prevented him from going to Mecca. He said, Ya Allah, you're preventing me from going to Mecca? I'm going to do something very creative. I'm going to build a shrine, which we call, by the way, you know what's the real name of that shrine? The Mosque of Abd al-Malik ibn Marwan. You know what we call it now? The Dome of the Rock. They don't want to call it the Mosque of Abd al-Malik ibn Marwan. You know why? They don't want to remind Muslims that it's Abd al-Malik who built this mosque. But if you go to Jerusalem, and I went, you see, it's the mosque of Abd al-Malik. Facts that many Muslims don't want to see. When did Jerusalem become significant to us? When the Crusaders decided to invade the Holy Land. And Saladin captured, suddenly we woke up and we said Jerusalem is very sacred. It's because of Salah ad-Din's treaty with Richard Lionheart that then Jerusalem became significant. Before that, ask a companion of the Prophet, would you go to, it was not called Jerusalem, it was called Elia, because that's the name that Hadrian gave to the city when he wanted to provoke the Jewish people. Elia. Would you go to Elia? Of course not. I would go to Mecca, I would go to Medina, I would go to Baghdad, I would go to Basra, I would go to Cairo. What should I do with Elia? But then it became significant when the Crusades happened. So I'm just saying that it is so important to understand history. And everything Anila said is true, but Muslims are blind because they are driven by emotions. Jerusalem is part of my faith. Where? Show me where. Where? Where is Jerusalem part of your faith? While it's zero mentioned in the Quran. Where? And I want to say also a few things. I wrote a very long script, but Anila provoked me to speak about something else. I want to say that I came from Abu Dhabi and lived the past 3 weeks in horror that I never experienced in my life. Horror by a terrorist regime in Iran. We keep receiving messages day and night. Missile alert, take cover. And we don't have shelters. We have basements, we have safe zones, of course, like basements and other places that are covered. But honestly, it was crazy. And then I asked myself, since I love history and knowledge, what is the problem between Persians and Jews? Zero. Persians and Jews should be best friends. I always remind my Jewish friends and ask them and tell them, you know who was the first official who restored the Jewish people to their ancestral homeland? 99% of the time I say, yeah, of course, we love him. He was a British official. Balfour, my friend. There was someone preceding Balfour 2,000 years before. Cyrus the Great, and he commanded me to build him a house in Jerusalem that is in Judea. These are the words of Cyrus, Qorash, we call him in Arabic. The Jews now should return the favor to Cyrus. And I would say this honestly, I believe this regime will fall eventually. And I want to say one thing, I want to conclude, Anila, but I know many people might say, don't say this in a blue state. I'm going to say it, okay? Gently. I want to say it. I'm standing here now, right now, before you, because I was known worldwide for my advocacy for the Abraham Accords. And I believe the Abraham Accords are the greatest breakthrough in American foreign diplomacy, and all of you should be proud of that. Even if you are not Jewish, even if you're not Christian, even if you're an atheist, even if you are a Democrat, Republican, whatever your party is, you should be proud of the Abraham Accords. And I know when I speak about this, some people come to me and say, every event that I speak about this, the event organizers, they send me a long WhatsApp group. Don't talk about it anyway. I said, okay, I'll talk briefly. I know many of you might have some opinions, but honestly, in the Middle East, we love President Trump. And we really believe that this great country will do a great favor for the people of Iran. And I hope, inshallah, that this country that God blessed with so many blessings, including its great army, will bring those mullahs on their knees and free the Iranian people so we may have Cyrus Accords, inshallah. Thank you.
And inshallah, Loay is here, and thank you, Loay. So he didn't tell us, you put me to shame in the language department because, I was bar mitzvahed, you speak Hebrew, you speak how many, and I read his story, go to YouTube, see his see about his story growing up and learning languages in France, right? And that's a great story, Loy. So I want to thank you so much for being here. You're on the panel now. We're going to bring our next keynote is Rabbi Erez Sherman, who is the senior rabbi at Sinai Temple. And just briefly for Rabbi Sherman, he's ordained by the Jewish Theological Seminary of America in 2009, holds degrees. I mean, this is a well-versed rabbi, okay? Music, okay? Jewish studies from Columbia and Albert A. List College, and it includes a focus on music and modern synagogue life. So he joined Sinai. I told Rabbi Sherman, my wife and I were married under Rabbi Dershowitz, who was a wonderful rabbi who preceded Rabbi Sherman. And he marries Nicole Guzik, who I know from my other life. And she's also a rabbi. I don't know how many rabbis are married to one another, Rabbi Sherman.
Too many.
Are there? All right. Well, I want to just also bring up in he has a podcast. And this podcast is great. It's focusing on intersection of sports and faith, okay? Now, a lot of people pray for, the Lakers, or I don't know if they go into that, but, Dodgers for three-peat. Rabbi Sherman, you can talk about all that for us too, and thank you so much for being our honored guest as well.
Thank you. First of all, to follow Anila and Loai, who actually I've followed you also online. I'm number 699,000 after Alan, but truly to both of you, thank you. I think that's all we can say from the Jewish community. Thank you. When a rabbi looks for another rabbi, if permission allows, I would like you to be my rabbi as well. When I moved to LA in 2009, I kept two things because I'm not from here. I'm not from the UAE, but I'm from New York. And so I kept my cell phone number at 917. You can't lose those roots. But I also kept my love of good pizza. And I was a rabbi in the Valley for 5 years in 2009, 2014 at Shomrei Torah in West Hills. And on my lunch breaks, I would go to a pizza shop. It was actually Amici's Pizza on Van Owen and Platt, if you're from the Valley. And the guy who owned it, his name was Najib, and he was from Pakistan. And when you break bread, you get to know the person across the table. And so over the 5 years that I was there, I got to know Najib, and I asked him, who are you? And Najib said that he came after 9/11 because he was a pharmacist in Pakistan when the Taliban came and literally cut his hair. And he came to this country for freedom. I'll never forget one summer, it was Ramadan. I was not fasting, I was eating pizza, but this man who was fasting for a month in the hot San Fernando Valley summer, he was making my pizza. And I asked him, Najib, when are you going to be done fasting? And he said, I have to go to the imam to make sure to tell me when I'm going to be done fasting. And I realized that in 2 days it was going to be Rosh Chodesh, the new month. And I said, Najib, you're going to be done in 2 days. He said, Rabbi, you can't answer me when I'm going to be done with Ramadan. I have to go to the imam. And he came back in 2 days and he said, but you were right. How did you know when Ramadan ended? And we had an amazing discussion about the lunar calendar that we both shared. And it was one of these moments that we realized we had much, much, much more in common than we had in difference. I share this story today because Anila said it's about breaking bread, a new dawn for Jews and Muslims. Thankfully, we're doing this today because in a couple of days, that loaf of bread will be flatbread for us. It'll be matzah. And when we sit at our Passover Seder tables with our families and our communities, and I hope this year that you have somebody that is not Jewish at your Seder. Yes, invite your friends and family, but invite a neighbor who's not Jewish to see these rituals. Because at that Seder, we're going to take the middle matzah, we have a pile of 3, and we're going to break it, and what's it going to become? The afikomen. We're going to hide it. The leader of the Seder will hide it, and we know that we cannot end the Seder until this large piece of matzah is found. But who searches for the afikomen? I didn't tell them before. They actually know. Knowledge and facts. It's our children that search for this piece of matzah. The entire Seder is not about me and you, but it's about the people that are not in this room. It's about our children. But also the Afikoman is the story of the broken and the whole. And our task for that Seder night is to put the pieces back together. That is the work of our time. I watched your beautiful address at Stand With Us in Vegas a couple of days ago. And Lawai Sharif talked about the success of the Abrahamic Accords. It's not just rooted in agreements, but you said not between governments, but most importantly in relationship between souls and people. And you said, just like you did now, that the hope is that one day we have the Cyrus Accords, a future of peace between the people of Iran and Israel. And as a rabbi at Sinai Temple, which I'm inviting you right now to please join us, where over 50% of our population is from Iran, I cannot agree more, because history reminds us that this is possible. During the golden age of Spain, Jews and Muslims lived together in remarkable partnership. Jewish thinkers that we quote every single day, like Maimonides. He wrote in Arabic, deeply influenced by Islamic philosophy. Jewish scholars thrived in places like Granada. Leaders like Chasta ibn Shaprut rose to prominence. And after the expulsion of Jews in Spain in 1492 was the Ottoman Empire that brought the Jews into their lands in places like Istanbul and Salonika. And then Maimonides ended his life actually in Egypt, of all places of this week, where he became a court physician in Cairo and wrote some of the greatest works there, like the Guide to the Perplexed in Arabic, and something that rabbis use every day, the Mishneh Torah, which became the law code of the Jewish people. He did not isolate himself, but he exchanged intellectual ideas with the greater society around him. But today I want to focus not what was, but rather what is and can be. I recently participated in an organization unpacked for Israeli educators at Sinai. We had 150 Israel educators from around the West Coast. And I was on a panel with Toba Hellerstein, who was the author of the study of American perception of Jews in Israel. And she emphasized something critical. She said, actually, don't lead with facts, but first lead with feeling. Facts matter, as we just heard. Facts matter, but only relationships that are built will allow us to understand that we have to learn the facts. That feeling happens when people meet people. So 3 brief stories of what happened just these past few weeks in my own life. Yes, as a rabbi at Sinai Temple, but most importantly as a Jew in the diaspora of America. Through my work hosting the podcast of Rabbi on the Sidelines, where we speak about the intersection of Jews and sports, the NBA All-Star Game was here. And yes, everybody made a big deal of having Danny Avdia, the first Jewish Israeli NBA All-Star. Yes, Danny, thank you. But we hosted a conference called Faith Connection in Sports at Sinai Temple, where Jews and Christians and Muslims came together. And one of those people that were on the panels was Mansour Lagari, who was from Pakistan, who when he became a citizen of the United States, the first thing he did was sign up to join the United States Armed Forces, because he understood that that was what freedom was about. Soraya Dean, one of our panelists, is actually an advisor to Mansour Lagari, and he started a global Muslim-Jewish unity project where he brings kids together, not in a mosque, and not in a synagogue, and not in a church, but a basketball court. A place where you can pass a ball to each other, when you can high-five each other, when you can have the feeling, and only then, begin to learn the facts. It's the Afikoman in action, children helping to repair a broken world. Prior to that conference, I had the opportunity at the Jewish National Fund Conference in Miami, where I'm the head of the Rabbis for Israel organization, to interview 2 other amazing athletes, Sagi Muki, the judoku from Israel, and from Iran, Saeed Molaei. You know their very famous story where Saeed refused because of the Iranian government to fight with Sagi on a mat. And so what did he do? He defected to Mongolia, where he finally had the opportunity to meet his opponent. And today, Sagi and Saeed are not only best friends, but Saeed has visited Israel. And in front of 600 people, they held their medals together, but most importantly, they held their hands together in the air. Saeed said, in judo, we say friendship is the purest of human feelings. He chose courage over conformity, and in doing so, he found freedom too. This next generation, we know, and I see some of you out there, are hungry for connection. And finally, in April 2024, during the encampment season, I met a young man named Hamza Hawadi who was writing in Newsweek. Hamza was saying, what you young people are doing on the college campus in the West are not helping me as a Gazan, as a Palestinian at all. And so I called a friend of mine, Bassem Aid, who you all probably know very well, and I said, Bassem, can you connect me with this young man? Do you know him? And Bassem said, how do you think he got in Newsweek? And so Bassem connected me with Hamza Hawadi, this young man who fled persecution in Gaza because he himself was on the streets of Gaza protesting against Hamas and the terrorist regime. He told me something striking. While he risked his life opposing extremism in Gaza, he saw students doing what they shouldn't be doing. Recently, I invited Hamza on Zoom because he's not yet been able to visit the United States of America. And I brought him to a class of mine that I'm teaching at Loyola Marymount University that I'm very proud of, especially at the university of a Jesuit college called Zionist Ideas. And Hamza spoke to this class, which only a third of them are Jewish. And I said at the end, can you sort of explain how you think about Zionist ideas? And this is what Hamza told our class. He said, Rabbi, I have seen what Zionism has achieved for the Jewish people. And I hope one day that there will be something like that for me and my people too. That, Hamza, is courage. And around the same time, I met, or began to follow, Ahmed Al-Khatib, from the Atlantic Council of an organization called Realign for Palestine. He too grew up in Gaza. He is deaf in the right ear from actually an airstrike, and he lost 32 members of his family in the Gaza war. And yet he has built honest dialogue and human connection. Last week I had the opportunity to literally be face-to-face with Ahmed Al-Khatib in a conference called the Lafel Conference, 150 Zionist rabbis. Hard to believe today that we have to put the adjective in front of the word rabbis called Zionist rabbis. And so we gathered in Palm Beach, Florida, which we determined was a brave and safe space. And at the end, after thanking him for all that Ahmed does, and if you read him, he truly does so much, I thanked him just like I did to you on behalf of the Jewish people, and I asked him, like I always do our interfaith partners, when we realize that we have allies and friends, I said, I know what you have done for us, but what can we do for you? 150 rabbis, Orthodox, Reformed, Conservative, non-denominational. We were all waiting for what we could do for Ahmed. And he told us two things. He said, number one, be a prouder Jew. And number two, be a prouder Zionist. And finally, when you talk about the Cyrus Accords, every Saturday afternoon after I leave Sinai Temple and turn into my civilian clothes, I go for a walk around Westwood on Shabbat. That walk began in April 2024 when I wanted to see what was happening just a mile away from my house on the UCLA campus. And what I saw was horrific and divisive and full of fear for Jewish students and a lot of other students. And thankfully, those encampments are no longer, and I want to thank Chancellor Julio Frank, an amazing, amazing new chancellor of UCLA, for doing the work that he's doing. But 4 weeks ago, I went on that same walk. The UCLA campus was very quiet. But as I turned towards Wilshire Boulevard, I heard a lot of commotion and noise. And I walked down Wilshire and Westwood Boulevard, and I saw something that I never thought I would see in my life. I saw Persian Jews. I saw Muslims. I saw all different types of Americans. And what were they holding? A three-part flag. It was Iranian with a lion on it. It was an American flag. And it was an Israeli flag. And I realized that the Cyrus Accords began in Westwood Boulevard, right here in our amazing, amazing city. That moment will live forever in my mind. But really, as we sit at the Seder table, we're going to put that piece of matzah back together. That is our answer to the question when we say, Ma nishtana, why is this day right now different from all other nights? Because you are here. Because we are here. We are here together to choose to break bread, not as strangers, but as partners. And in so doing, we will move from much, much brokenness in this world to a lot of fullness and wholeness ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Sherman, and good Pesach to you. I want to make a few remarks. This is technically the introduction. I did speak a little bit, but I do want to welcome everyone here to what is the first Breaking Bread, a New Dawn for Jews and Muslims program. You are here this year, and one of these seats is reserved for Elijah, by the way. I don't know if you knew that, but Elijah may be with us in all these seats, and we're hoping that we spread the word of this program because it's exceptional. And I'm humbled following all three of you. You are amazing people. You're changing, actually helping to change the world. And when we know this is not making this up. So I want to just say briefly, so everyone knows, we are having a panel discussion with Q&A, and if we don't have time for all the questions to be answered, because I think when we hear these fine speakers, and we have a few more we will introduce, we're going to have more questions, and that's a good thing, okay? When we have questions, we get information. We're not just going on the internet and just choosing, who sounds the loudest or gives the most, whatever their rhetoric is. So if we don't do this, I'm going to ask our panelists, and we're going to keep the cards of your questions. So keep them, even if you go home and you still have these cards. We have our email on there at programs@ammwec.org, and we'll do our best to have our speakers address them for social media, and maybe do what Loai always does so great. I mean, just goes around, and we have the videos, and he's the man on the street everywhere, and it's wonderful. And we could get these questions answered, because when people actually hear folks like this, maybe we like to think they'll think again. So when we started this, we thought, hey, Breaking Bread, this is happening at a convergence on the calendar of Ramadan, the end of Ramadan, and Palm Sunday today. We honor that, and right before Pesach. So we'll breathe out. But I want to clear up something that some folks may have read, and I just want to bring it up about this program, because it comes from some of the noisemakers we heard that disrupted our colleges and universities, and they've come back with a vengeance, with a new maybe tactic, not as loud on the campuses, but it's their press releases. And some of you may be surprised, but there's a lot of misinformation in them, okay? One of them is that this is an AMMWEC and ADL conspiracy, okay? To undermine the true Muslim voices out there. I want to bring a little truth to bear, because we are being videotaped, at least I am, not the audience, and we want some truth, because I think truth actually is a good thing. This program did not begin with AMMWEC. It did not begin with ADL. It didn't start with an organization. This started with an idea, one germ of an idea among neighbors, my Jewish neighbors. Because something changed after October 7th for all of us in the Jewish community, especially in the diaspora, who've experienced rising anti-Semitism not seen in the modern era. My father and uncles went to war to stop this. They would not believe what happened to the world they left us. So hate directed for Jews, for wars happening on the other side of the world, right or wrong, whether you agree or disagree. I mean, Jews get blamed. We know that in this room. And for Jews, October 7 was a turning point. And like many of you, my neighbors and I asked, What can we do to stop the madness? At the time, none of my Jewish friends were maybe familiar with Rabbi Sherman, but they didn't know you yet, Loi, not yet. They do now. We realized something, and it was brought up today. We can't do it alone as Jews. We have felt so long that no one was on our side or listened as much as we could bang our heads against the wall. We need Muslim allies. We do. We need you guys. It's no doubt, because people aren't listening to Jews. They aren't. A friend of mine said, "You're the Mahjong crowd." I said, "Well, I don't. I have a great set of Mahjong. My mother-in-law left us, but I don't know how to play." But I'll be honest. The Muslims I know and have known, I can't talk to them. And a neighbor of mine who is Muslim, I said, "Hey, I've got this great program." He says, "Alan, I'll support you. I'll send money." I said, "But Muslims can't be seen in public with Jews." That's what he said. I mean, it breaks my heart. And I know there are some empty seats here. A lot of these empty seats were paid for, folks. And a lot were paid for by all communities. We approached all communities. This is an inclusive event, an inclusive program. Muslims, Christians, Jews. That's why we have this Breaking Bread program, so we come together symbolically. But this is something that it does hurt, and it hurts to know that there are Jews who are afraid to come here. They're afraid to be in public. Also, many don't trust Muslims. We need to change that. I hope the folks in this audience help do that. So I really do want to be quick about how I met Anila Ali. Because when we gathered and we said, we can't do this on our own, I said, who do I know who is a Muslim who does speak out? And it dawned on me. I said, I know somebody who ran for office 10 years ago in Orange County. This person ran for state assembly. This person ran for the Irvine City Council. And I remember I supported, I don't want to talk too much about politics, but we became friends and we talked, hey, maybe we could help you as a Jew or as Muslim. What happened was, it was Anila Ali. And when I reached out to Anila, and I said, Anila, would you be a speaker at something my neighbors and I want to put together? And she said, well, I said, how are you, and how about anti-Semitism? She said, Alan, I led a group of Muslim women to Israel after October 7th. After October 7th, everyone. This courageous woman, and what she told me, yes. And talking to her, and Rabbi Sherman will maybe attest to this. Rabbi Dershowitz told me this word too when I got married with my wife. The word's beshert. Okay, this is beshert, that I was to put my life together and came together with my friend from over 10 years ago. And so Anila said to me, Alan, I'll do more than speak. And here we are. So, everyone, we've got next, we're going to do our panel. I want to introduce and get through this for Alex Cohen. Alex is the national news anchor for Spectrum One. She was also the moderator for the 2026 Jewish California Governors Forum. She is an award-winning journalist, and we are so fortunate to have her as our moderator. I'm going to let Alex take over for introducing the rest of the panel, And then there'll be some maybe Q&A. We'll pick up some cards and try and get to some of them. Thank you very much, everyone.
As rich as this one is that everyone has a lot to say on it. So I want to start off with the folks that we haven't heard from yet, or three folks there at the end of our row. And starting with Rabbi Levy, if you could introduce yourself briefly. We've heard from our other speakers today what you see as some of the most important commonalities between Islam and Judaism. What commonalities do you see?
Sure. Great. Well, thank you for all being here. So I'm Rabbi Peter Levy. I am the Senior Director for Programs at ADL on the West Coast. But before that, I spent 18 years as a synagogue rabbi, where I spent a lot of time also working with the Muslim community and partnerships between mosques and the Jewish community. So commonalities, you know, it starts with a lot of commonalities, particularly after 9/11. We started living room dialogues to talk about common values. I had a synagogue that we worked together on Habitat for Humanity bills. We started having Thanksgiving services together. We started celebrating what it means to be Americans from a marginalized group, right? We were really great about bringing about the commonalities, sort of those universal values that we have that all religious traditions and faith groups share, right? So it's actually, that was really easy, bringing people in the room and doing that together. But the couple things we noticed. One, when we bring commonalities together, we sort of get the choir, right? The same people show up to these ventures, right? That actually the majority of our congregations don't show up. So what can we do about that? And also, there's a richness to have other conversations. So for example, we started doing, what if we do a pulpit exchange? I'll preach in the mosque, you preach in the synagogue. You know, how can we do that? What, instead of religious school, instead of coming this Sunday to the synagogue, we're going to bring our families to the mosque. You know, so we really tried, like, how can the people get to know each other? How can they share their stories? So there's lots of the universal values that we all share, right? We can build for the poor. We can do food projects. We can care for others. We can talk about peace. But what we also can do is we heard a number of people talk about it, right? How do we hear those relationships? How do we get those on the ground to really move our communities forward? So that's a common effort.
Thank you for that. And let's move it forward to Sheikh Musa Drame. What do you see as some of the most important commonalities between these two spiritual traditions?
First of all, let me begin by greeting you all. Salam, Assalamu alaikum, and good afternoon. My name is Sheikh Musa Drame. I am the president of Muslims Israel Dialogue, as well as an imam of a mosque in the Bronx. And I'm coming from the Boogie Down Bronx. So I have my brother here from New York. So we're from New York. Let me quickly bring home to what we can do. We can read, we can be upset, we can dramatize things, but unless we take action, nothing happens. And we learned that after October 7. All the relationships that we took for granted evaporated because they were never real. So I hope that we're not going to repeat the same mistake. So when we build now, we build to last. Let me tell you what we did in New York. My brother talked about blue state. New York is the bluest. You talk about blue state, we are the bluest. During the mayoral campaign, when we have Democratic candidates running for mayor, they held a debate, and the moderators asked the candidates, where would you go first should you win? All of them, except one, said they will go to the Holy Land. The usual answer, the correct answer. But one candidate said, no, he's going to stay in New York. By the way, he was lying because after he said that a couple of weeks later, he went to Uganda. So he was lying. So he's not staying in New York. And then he went to Dubai. But that night, when he said he's not going, I told my wife, there's an opportunity. Because this young man has become now one of the most profiled Muslims in the world. What he said and his priorities become normalized. And if we allow him to reject going to the Holy Land, that will also be normalized. We're not going to allow that. Let's organize Muslim intellectuals to go to the Holy Land on his behalf. And my wife said, that's a great idea, let's do it. I said, okay, you go to bed, I'll write the press release. So I spent the night, wrote the press release, circulated social media, people love it. 3 organizations reached out to us and said, whatever money you need, we'll pay for the people who go. We took the first group in October. We took 2 groups in December with Anel Ali. Over 61 Muslim intellectuals went to the Holy Land on behalf of Mam Dani. That is an action we can take as Muslims and Jews. Thank you.
And Soraya Dean, the same question to you, and especially would appreciate hearing how your experience as a South Asian Muslim influences how you understand the commonalities.
Thank you so much. I want to begin by saying half the world are women, the other half are children. So, so we as women, we have a special mandate. As we always do, we are called to look at the challenge and wink. We were born for this moment, friends. We were born for this moment to come here today so that we could talk about light, not darkness. We could talk about love, not hate. And we could talk about peace, not war. But I want you to remember, you heard about the scripture, you heard about the stories, but we have to act. We have to act. Because if we don't take action, the moment will define us. So we need to take action to define the moment. And that's what I want to talk to you about being a South Asian Muslim and what it means to me to stand with my Jewish brothers and sisters. And as I do that, to invite my Muslim brothers and sisters to change heart, to join, because we can't do this alone. These are defining moments in our lives. We have to understand, see the story of Rosa Parks. She refused to cooperate with injustice, right? When she was denied to sit a seat at the bus, they could have filed a lawsuit because a year before was Board versus Brown, the decision was made, but segregation was illegal. But what they did is a profound lesson for us, is that they built a movement. And that is our calling today. We have to build a movement, and that takes work. And my father would always tell me that you are best equipped to teach somebody who you were once. And why do I say this? September 11th, 2007, my 7-year-old son was bullied. And we came out of that, not by myself, but because of my Jewish friends who helped me, who taught me, who stood with me, and who taught me how to advocate. So we have much work to do, and I know the time is very limited. And in one of my moments of despair, I told to a friend of mine who's in Trinidad, you know, I've worked so hard for so many years, I feel I'm not moving the needle. And he said to me, Soraya, your task is not to move the needle, maybe it is to build a dam. To build a reservoir so that this hate does not spill over. And in my last final words, I want you to remind about the work of George Washington Carver. Do you remember that man who was a slave, who didn't have rights? His rights were denied. But he founded 300 uses for the peanut. Because he saw the peanut. I brought some peanuts for you, and I would really hope, please, take a peanut and let it remind you that we have work to do. This is not a moment for us to wait for the ADL to do what they are doing so beautifully, so magnificently, but they can only do so much. This is not a moment for electoral politics either. We won't get our rights met. This is a moment for you, me, and all of us to stand and to take action in a unified, in a consistent way. So what Carver did was that he found 300 uses for the peanut. Because why? Through the peanut, he fought for dignity. He fought for rights. And he became an innovator, one of the greatest scientists. So as a South Asian Muslim, I see the distinction between the Arab Muslim and the South Asian Muslims. The Arab Muslims who have dominated the conversation have not told us the truth. You heard Brother Lowe, you heard Anila. We have been not told the truth about who Israel is, what Zionism is, and we were taught to hate. I come from a country, we fought a 30-year-old war, but we were not taught to hate. So all those stories we can share on another day, but my message to you is, please, we have to all get out of our seats, and I know you are doing this, but we have to build bonds. Relationships are critical for this beautiful city, for our country, and for the work we plan to do. Thank you.
And I think Alan's collecting here. If there are cards, if you haven't filled yours out yet, we will try to make time. We probably won't be able to get to all of them, but we'll try to get to some if you'd like to hand them along. So much of the work that you all have been discussing is such important work that best happens face-to-face and in person, and yet what did we start off with today? A social media video of Anila. I'd love to hear briefly, think ex post or less, brief, and let's just go right down the line, starting with Anila. What role do you think social media plays when it comes to helping or hurting bringing these communities together?
As you all know, social media is very important, so I will ask you to follow us and promote our messages on social media because the algorithms are against us. It's hard for us. But at the same time, on my social media, I saw a hunger from outside of America of Muslims asking me, sister, why did you speak up for Israel? What happened? Hamas. But guess what happened? Facebook blocked me. And I had to fight after October 7th. I still don't have my account back. Why? Because I was telling stories of the trip that we took to Israel, where we met Muslims, Bedouins, Arabs, a guy from Gaza whose wife was gunned down by Hamas 32 times. I was telling that story to people in Pakistan and India and UAE and UK. And they were asking because they were not told. They were getting news from Al Jazeera. And so they weren't aware of why and who attacked Israel on October 7th. And who they attacked. There were Druze, Muslims, Christians, Thai. There were so many people, innocent people that they attacked. So social media is really important. We must get our message out. And I ask you all to share it. I just want to give an example. When I go live on TikTok, I used to speak a lot in English, and then I realized like there are a lot of English speakers and America's getting its news. And I started speaking in Urdu, a language spoken by 1.5 billion people, India, Pakistan, Bollywood, kind of Bollywood language. And I realized those are the people I need to speak to. And since I've been talking to them, the hate that I got, 89% were, negative messages. And today it's like 2,500 messages of support and perhaps 5, 10, 15, 20 messages of hate that Israel pays me. That's why I have all my FBI and everybody standing outside protecting all of us. So things have turned around. And that's because I continued, I persevered, and I went on all these social media platforms. And, you know, I get inspired by Luai, and then I go and I say things, and Muslims want to hear. So sometimes when he's speaking in Arabic, I share that, and I say, this is my brother from UAE. We need to do that. We are few in numbers, but when we were in Israel recently, there were journalists who'd gone with us, and the entire families and friends in Canada and New York, they stopped talking to them. This is right now. But they went, and they've come back to make non-profits that will build peace and break bread with the Jews and Christians. Abrahamic unity. They will promote the Abraham Accords. So there is momentum. I know that it's hard to see that in California, as I was, you know, talking to my friends here. But you see, California is very important. And one of the reasons when Alan reached out and we said, you know, we got to do something, I ran for office here. And I lost the first time thanks to the Agents of Chaos, Council on American Islamic Relations. I saw what they were doing. They were misogynistic. They were patriarchal. And their leader, and I don't want to say this, but their leader has sexually propositioned and sexually harassed a Muslim Pakistani woman, Lori Saroya, and many others. There was also a Palestinian girl who moved to DC from here. We were fighting a misogynistic, patriarchal, terrorist-sympathizing organization. Do you remember San Bernardino? Muslim women of AMMWEC stood with FBI and all the law enforcement agencies because there was a guy that ISIS had inspired him to kill Jews. And he went to the San Bernardino Mosque where somebody called us and we alerted FBI. Then he found friends at the Chino/Care Mosque and he committed that heinous crime. And guess who these people tried to pin the blame on? Israel and Jews. And we stood up. So we've been seeing what they're doing, that they are scapegoating the Jews, but they don't want to look within. They have a goal, and they have people that are funding them that are bigger than you and me. And so we have to fight with good words and good people, our Quran, our religion, and our friends. You have to be our friends, you have to be our voice and promote our social media. And that's what I appeal to all of you. Please do that for us.
I want to say one thing, added to what Anila said. Social media is very powerful, but there's also one of the greatest blessing California gave the world is Anthropic. Claude, AI. So I use AI a lot in reviving history. I love history so much. By the way, I didn't study history. FYI, I studied in Saudi Arabia, and my master's I studied here in the US. I'm a proud Nittany Lion, Penn State. And I studied software engineering. Software engineering, I graduated with honors. That was like 13 years ago. And I use AI in bringing history, bringing history back to life. So I don't want to spoil so many upcoming projects, but I really believe that AI is so important in gamification. Imagine if you tell the story of, imagine if you're playing a game, you're walking in the second temple period in Jerusalem, seeing the Beit HaMikdash and educating people about what's happening, what the vibes were like in Jerusalem. By the way, you can build this game in an hour with an amazing engine called Unreal Engine with Claude in an hour. Unbelievable. I've seen the results. Oh my God, this is like a money maker. This is amazing. And imagine if you're building also the history of the United States and bringing the history of the United States to teach people these kind of things with AI. I believe AI is very important, and we can use this with social media. And I want to say that if you really want to help us, as Anila said, not just follow us, amplify our voice by bringing us to speak to Muslim communities, to other communities, to Christians. Also, I've spoken with so many Christian communities who were very anti-Israel in Europe, and they heard it, and they heard a different view. Help us amplify the voice. But I would say I use social media, and I'm now using AI intensively in gaming, in bringing history back to life, especially biblical history, because biblical history is very aligned with secular history when it comes to the history of civilizations and how we got into what we know right now of things. So I always say to people, history is so important that when President Arafat rejected to sign a peace agreement with Israel, he told President Clinton, with all due respect, Mr. President, I don't think Jews had a temple in Jerusalem. You know what I always say? I wish that we could educate our Muslims that if you really deny a temple in Jerusalem, I would buy them a ticket, or I would have bought a ticket for President Arafat, not to go to Israel, to Italy, to Rome, to the Arch of Titus, 300 meters away from the Colosseum, to see an inscription of Roman soldiers holding the menorah that came from the Beit HaMikdash. Imagine if we bring this into life, as a game, as a story, as a video. But this is the beauty of AI. I'm very highly focused on AI, and I believe that Claude is the best, honestly.
So I just want to mention a fear of social media. On 9/11, we've spoken a lot about 9/11. I partnered with Shiraka, which are amazing Muslim Zionists, I guess we define them, and we brought them to our community. And when I put something on social media, I actually received concern from our own community, not because of what we were doing, but because what if Muslim extremists see that our rabbi is actually bringing Muslim Zionists, then it'll hurt our children. Please, let our children be invisible in our physical space. And I was sort of caught off guard. I didn't know exactly what to do, because we teach our children, as the Passover Seder says, about being proud, but at the same time there is an extreme physical fear of what we're doing. And so what you said also about not only follow you, I'm somebody who not just follows, but I keep putting, thankfully, direct message like, oh, talk to me, Anila, talk to me. And what we find is, actually, heroes like this, they want to talk to us. That leads to conversation, that leads to real people, and then it leads to action. So yes, social media, but I also am very conscious of the audience of who it's going to, but more importantly, who it needs to go to. And that part, I don't think we've broken through yet in the Jewish community, because even within the Jewish community, which has division, we're speaking to different algorithms when it comes to Israel. There are a lot of people not in this room, in the Jewish community, that I think actually need to hear all of these voices too.
Yeah, so in my case, I use social media very much. So I have some over thousands liking my posts, but I don't read their responses because it can be very debilitating, yeah? But here's what I say. How many of you know 5 people you can mobilize towards a common cause? How many of you? We all do, right? So find that 5 and get that 5 to find 5 more people. Now we have 25 people in our group. And eventually the 25 will find 5 more, we have 125 people. And then I would say boldly post, challenge, because we need people to affirm and to challenge the lies that are out there. But I want to quickly tell you, in a few months I will be going back to Israel, because I have always wondered, why is it that 20% of Arabs are not speaking up? They are a powerful voice that can change the narrative. So we were in Cyprus, Anila was there too, we met an Arab girl who I asked, are you Palestinian? And she was offended. She said, no, I'm a proud Israeli Arab. So our next task, mine particularly, is to build a cohort of Arab women who will stand up, tell their stories, and use social media. So we're planning on a trip to go I have a woman whom I'm working with who will be teaching them how to do social media, how to film a short documentary. And we're trying to, the whole thing is, my friends, create a systems map. See the entry points. See who's going to oppose you. See who's going to support you. So this is a big task that is lying ahead of us. But use social media, it's good, but have a group of people who will like and support your posts. Thank you.
Yeah, while social media or media in general can amplify our voices, but we must also be authentic, and we must also avoid monetizing causes. And if you monetize a cause, then you reduce the value. That is why even when you look at the mega churches, you know, the value of spiritual value evaporates. And so we have to be very, very careful that if we are sending authentic messages, we should not monetize. The end goal should not be more likes, more followers, so that more money. If we do that, then we reduce it, and guess what? A lot of people will see it, but there's no value. We didn't have social media 50 years ago, but yet we were communicating. We were meeting. We were doing things. So I'm just very cautious about monetizing things to reduce the value of that. I'm speaking from experience coming from New York, where a lot of the problems we have in New York have been monetized. That's why they can never get solved, because if you solve it, then no more money. So that is my caution for media in general and social media in particular.
So there's no question social media is part of the environment now. We hear how people are taking advantage of it. But we also heard two things: what the danger of monetizing, and also what it might put a target on us, right? If you're out there on social media, you don't know who, right? There's a couple other things on the other hand I want to share about social media. Social media is a cesspool of disinformation. Misinformation is when you make a mistake. Disinformation is when you deliberately lie and use conspiracy theories to drive a social political agenda. And that is pervasive on the internet, and that is pervasive in social media, and that is feeding so much, particularly our younger generation. So it actually makes some of us are challenged. Like, when I wanted to bring the imam or bring Jews to a mosque, like, they were terrified. Is it safe? Like, they won't come to the synagogue unless you have an armed guard, but they're afraid to go to a mosque because they've been told something somewhere about it's not being safe for them, right? And that's a really innocent example of what is happening. So it's a powerful tool, but things that are powerful cut both ways. And unfortunately, since the like button was invented in 2010, algorithmic amplification has taken over, and the companies are more interested in profits than in protecting people, right? And particularly children. And we'll see what happens with the court case that just got settled, that just came out this week. But there's a lot of concern, right, about this algorithmic amplification, which puts what's sensational, that puts what could be disinformation and false and inflammatory, because it drives clicks and therefore drives profits. So important, but there's also a danger to it that we have to be aware of. We need really media literacy, learning deeply, on how to do that, how to pre-bunk, not just debunk. We heard about debunking, but pre-bunk. How do we prepare people so they don't fall into these false conspiracy theories and disinformation campaigns in the first place? So there's a lot of experiments that are going on out there. And another area is AI. It's the rave of everything now, but we have done. Artificial intelligence actually combs the internet and makes predictions. But if the internet is filled as a cesspool with filth, right, that's going to come through the LLMs, the large language models that drive the AI machines. So we actually, ADL has done a lot of studies and deep analysis and reports about the bias that is inherent in a variety of these large language models that the AIs rely on. Some are better than others. Some are really horrible. They all have challenges. So this is where, like, national organizations like us are really trying to help. How can we make AI better, because it's part of our environment? How can we make social media better so that it becomes really an opportunity to bind people together, but not put profits over people's safety, right? So there's a lot of challenges out there. So it's positive. We hear what the good it can have, but it also, we have to be cautious and we have to be deliberate as we move forward.
I'm going to turn over now to some questions from the audience.
Thank you, and I want to thank award-winning journalist Alex Cohen for moderating our panel. Thank you, Alex. We're very grateful for your participation today. So I'm David England. I'm the Senior Regional Director of ADL Los Angeles, and I'm just going to moderate some of the Q&A for a few minutes. And we have a number of questions were submitted by the audience. We've chosen 4 to be part of the discussion today. If your question is not one of the ones that was chosen, we, as Alan said earlier, if you shared your contact information on the card, we will follow up afterwards because we want to make sure everyone's questions get answered, but we also want to respect everyone's time on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. So our first question, and I will say on the card, the questions were directed sort of to individuals, but I'm going to take the moderator's privilege, and I might direct the question to more than one person. So, and actually, I'm just going to kind of go down the line as appropriate. So this question says, I share your vision for peace in the Middle East. What can we as Americans do to promote peace and fight anti-Semitism? So this is going to be, I'm just going to go down the line, and I'm going to start with Peter at the end.
Yeah. So first thing we could do is, as I'm going to go down on relationships, right? We can't hear people's stories if we don't know them, right? So just going back once again, it's great for talking heads and leaders to do it, but I'm going to push the idea that perhaps we should need to get our folks together. Right before I joined ADL at my synagogue, I was working with the imam, and we had this idea of a series called The Stories You Need to Hear. And I said, you know, I believe I've never heard, and I don't think anyone in my synagogue has heard a story of a Palestinian family that had to leave their home in 1967 or 48 and couldn't go home. It's like, without the politics, what's the story about that? And he said, and you know what? I think we should hear the story about what it is for an Israeli living in the South to have rockets regularly flown at them, right? So we realize that there's important stories that we have to hear, but we doesn't happen to hear each other's stories if we don't know each other. So I think part of what we need to do is not just the talking heads. Leaders are important and influential, but I'm going to say to the masses, we need to figure out how to get them together. Congregations coming together to meet each other, to break bread, and hear each other's stories.
Thank you, Peter. Sheikh Drama.
Well, let me begin by saying what not to do to fight anti-Semitism. It is, you cannot fight anti-Semitism with anti-Islam. And the mistakes that now has been percolating is that because people are angry on both sides. I'm extremely angry that they generalize everybody now. The Muslims, the Israelis, the Palestinians. You cannot fight anti-Semitism with anti-Islam. That's, if you work at it here knowing only that, that will help you. The reason for that is this. You have these Muslims who risk their lives, and I tell you one thing, there are thousands of us. You know, there are thousands of us that are your allies, that are Zionists, that are pro-Israel, that are speaking the truth, and more are coming. So let's never ever use anti-Islam fighting anti-Semitism. That's number one. Number two, regardless of what your pain has been or what the injustice has been in your life, always believe that there are other people who feel or would have acted differently. And if we do that, then I guarantee you'll have more allies fighting anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism than you think there are. That is my advice to you, because in New York, I've seen Jewish communities that have, after October 7, they're so angry that now they're generalizing Muslims and Islam, and they are financing. During the mayoral campaign, I was supporting the incumbent. And there were some Jewish groups that I went to their living rooms and did a presentation about this mayor who happened to be the biggest supporter of Israel, the best defender, but yet there were Jewish groups that wanted to recruit me, and then the message they were sending me so anti-Islamic. So I had to educate them. I said, you cannot fight anti-Semitism with anti-Islam. If you do that, you're fighting 2 billion Muslims, and you are 16 million. I don't care how powerful you are, you're going to have a long time to finish us off. So that is my message to you. Don't do it. And there are a lot of people like us, and find us, ally with us, and break bread. and then we can all fight anti-Semitism together.
Thank you.
Mother Teresa once said, if you can't feed 100, feed one. Feed that one person consistently. So I would say, don't attempt for peace in the Middle East. Let's attempt for peace in our neighborhood. Yes, I wrote an op-ed called, Why Didn't You Call Me After October 7th? Be bold. Call that Muslim friend who has not stood up for you, for your community, for this country. Do simple things in a great way and see that you're consistent. I always say, don't be interested. We have hundreds of people who are interested. Be committed. Be committed to a specific goal and take strategic action, not alone. Build your group and take strategic action, and I'm sure this is possible, because when John F. Kennedy said, let's go to the moon, people were inspired. There were 2 Jewish scientists who found the cure for polio. You know? And before Roger Bannister in 1955, I think, ran the mile in under 4 minutes, everybody, for decades, people said, we cannot run a mile under 4 minutes. And he did it under 3.5, 9.3 seconds. So we have to do the thing that is possible. Dream big. And I am 100% sure, as I said, build a dam, move the needle, do something. And Dr. King says, you know, if you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, sit. If you can't sit, crawl. For goodness sake, don't wait without doing anything.
So I didn't have to wait because Soraya called me after October 7th, which meant everything to me. And at the same time, we didn't do anything with it. And that's on me and our community. And this is another call to let's do this together. And it's happened many, many times, as Peter said, or sorry, Rabbi Levy said, that we also have to go to, I don't want to say them, but people who are not us. After the Tree of Life shooting, actually before the Tree of Life shooting, I was invited to the Catholic Church in Beverly Hills, and I just didn't have time. Only after the Tree of Life shooting, when the Catholic priest came to Sinai Temple and blessed us with a prayer for our country, did I then go to him, and that led to, we call it covenant work in terms of feeding the homeless. It shouldn't have to wait until the Tree of Life, and then San Bernardino, and then 9/11, and then 10/7. We have to pre-bunk these relationships, and I think that's really, really crucial. Same thing when George Floyd happened. Thankfully, we do a beautiful MLK relationship with Faithful Central Bible Church in Inglewood. And when Rabbi Wolpe said, what words should we say? We had a person to call to say, what words does your community need to hear? And that's when we hung a sign on our synagogue that said, we stand with our African American brothers and sisters against racism. And when somebody said, well, how did you come up with those words? Well, we asked our friends who needed that at that moment. And so building these relationships, number one, takes time, but also takes creating brave spaces, which I'm truly honored to do here. And when you say build a movement, yes, it begins within our synagogue and our mosque and our church. It then circles out. And I think this is amazing that this is not just LA, this is like international right here. And I hope that this is the beginning of the Break the Bread movement, if we're going to call it that.
So 2 things. First of all, strengthen your relations with your non-Jewish friends, especially Muslim friends. And my second practical thing I would say is that vote for a president who cares about the Middle East. So whoever comes in 2028, whoever comes in 2028, please God rube you. Just vote for someone who would care for the Middle East. Because I tell you again, I am here right now in the United States speaking about the Abraham Accords because an American president made a courageous decision of having the Abraham Accords. The American president, any president, is a very strong the strongest decision maker in the world. Why do you think other presidents before President Trump didn't make the Abraham Accords? They could have done it, but they didn't care enough. I'm sorry to say this. They couldn't care enough. They didn't care enough. So vote for a president who cares about bringing the children of Abraham together in the Middle East, because an American president can make it happen.
Anila.
Amen to that. So, you know that I'm from California, and just before October 7th, just before COVID actually, I had gone on the Olive Tree Initiative, which was a campus initiative to keep our campus safe and diverse, right? You want diversity of opinions on campus. So we had kids who were pro-Palestinian, some in the middle, some pro-Israel, but they all talked to each other. They were conversing. And that program got disbanded during COVID. But it gave me the opportunity to actually go to Gaza, meet the people who lost to Hamas, and they told me how their people were brutally thrown off roofs. Can you believe that? And those are the kinds of things I came back with as I met people in Ramallah, and I met the Palestinian Authority. And I talked to them, and they said, you're a Muslim. You know these Jews. And I said, hang on. Yes, this is our land. And that's the moment I said, they believe in a zero-sum game. And so did the students that were with me. And these were all diverse students who were like, okay, that's not going to solve anything for anybody. We came back to the California campuses. That program was amazing. But what I want to tell you is that the diversity of voices needs to come back to California campuses and schools and your conversations. My doctor, about a year ago, he told me, Anila, I'm really sorry that my neighbor, who's a Muslim, he's a doctor too, and he doesn't want to talk to me. He's Pakistani. What happened to him after October 7th? And I said, from what I know, Hamas didn't do anything to him, but they did kill a lot of Muslims too. And I said, go up to him and say, listen, you're my neighbor, and I'm an American, you're an American. You're not talking to me? And he said, no, but I tried. He just doesn't let his kids play with me. We cannot do that. And I urge you, you know, I've spoken to a woman who wrote, Muslims and Jews must be friends. And then October 7th came, and I talked to her. She said, no, but October 7th, Israel has killed. And I said, no, 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 no. It was started by Hamas. But if you don't have these conversations and you don't ask your neighbor or your friend, listen, I haven't done anything. Yes, we may have political differences, but let's talk to each other. Until we have the courage to do that, and I ask you to have that courage because your voice as a neighbor is very powerful. There were kids in California who wrote to me and said, Miss Ali, because I was a teacher here, I heard that my friends are telling me that I need to kill Jews. There's an Orange County student in Ramadan last year. In New Jersey, we were in mosque trying to tell the Muslims, let the Jewish people come and break bread during Ramadan. What is wrong with you? Soraya was there with me. And they were saying, no, no, no. These people, that's the kind of conversation you don't get to hear. That's what they whisper behind you, these agents of chaos that share my religion, sadly. And you must question them. Also, ask them, are you really authentic partners? Because we can have a difference. We can be Republicans, Democrats. Fine, you may not like our opinion or their opinion. But come on, to want to kill and annihilate the other, that you can't have peace, the Palestinians deserve better than that. And the Israelis deserve to live in safety and security with the neighbor. And that's the simple conversation that we used to have before October 7th. We need to bring that back on the campuses and go to your mosque. Because a Muslim told me the other day, I was talking like, why didn't these moderate Muslims go for Eid prayers? They didn't want to go for Eid prayers, they slept in. So I said, why didn't you go? We go to the mosque, we don't hear the sermon, the Jummah khutbah, we pray and we come out. Do you know that the moderate Muslims, they told me that after 9/11 in LA as well. They said, we don't want to hear the anti-American or the hate for the Yahud. We don't want to hear that. It's just so disempowering. And yet, there is no one who's speaking up. Ask your neighbors, question them. You have a right to do that because in the end, it's about America. It is about all our kids, not just some of them.
Sorry, I have.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I have to say this because I heard it from Aniela. As someone who proudly studied in this country, who loves this country so much, I would never agree with someone who would say burning an American flag is a freedom of speech. But many people, including some of my Jewish friends, they say, yeah, so what? You burn a flag, you buy another flag. Sometimes, with all due respect, and I said it to the Congress people that I spoke to, and to decision makers here in the United States, and to many politicians, sometimes, with all due respect, your policies are emboldening the terrorists and the extremists. When you are giving liberal freedom to those who misuse it, don't complain then when people are misusing it. Yes, when I go to Canada and I pray for the Friday prayer, I go to a mosque and I see it dominated by Chechenians or Asian Muslims. Well, I freak out, honestly, because I see the khutbahs and everything. Oh, it's pure hate. So I pray and come out immediately, as she said. But sometimes, with all due respect, many policies need to be reconsidered. Do not allow those haters to misuse the democracy and the liberal freedom that you gave them to use it against you.
So so we're over time, and I want to respect everyone's time. So we're going to have this one final question to the panel, and then if your question wasn't answered, we will follow up, and then we're going to move on to our breaking bread ceremony, which is really an important symbolic part of today's event. Yeah, we will send you the questions. We want to make sure they all get answered. But I think this is an important question, and a couple of you touched on it, and this really speaks to the future. And I'm going to start with Rabbi Sherman, because I know you are very involved in teaching and mentoring young people, but we'll give everyone a chance to answer. But this question really is, how can we get young Jews and young Muslims to come together and engage with each other as we work together and shape the future? So this is really it's not about the people in this room. I don't see any very young people in this room. This is about really the children. How do we get...
Everybody's shaking their head. So actually, when you say young, there are so many different levels of young. Yeah. First, it would say, we have to get to the college campus. Now we said, we have to get to high school. Well, now it's kindergarten, like literally in kindergarten. And within the Jewish community, and those who are here probably know this, and I don't know what it's like in the Muslim world, I would love to sort of hear that, but the division between parents and children right now in terms of, oh, you know what, we've been lied to about Israel, and we didn't know about all the other things that you didn't tell us, and therefore people come to us as rabbis and say, wait, but I send my children to synagogue, to Jewish summer camp, to Jewish school, and now look at them. And that's a really, really difficult and interesting thing that we are dealing with internally. And before we go externally, we're dealing with that right now. And at the same time, I think we also are ready for the external to begin. Where does it begin? Again, I often do bring it back to a sport court because it's the most, I think, amazing thing. Coach Bruce Pearl, who many of you might know, who's an amazing, no longer coach, but activist, he actually said he wants to do the Abrahamic Court Cup, where they go to Dubai and then Israel. He brought, for instance, an African-American team from Auburn, Alabama, in a very Christian area of this country, to Israel, played basketball, and it changed those kids' lives. If you haven't heard of Coach Bob McKillop, who was actually Stephen Curry's college coach, who coached Davidson College for many years, in 2018, without a basketball, he took his players to Auschwitz. His son is now the coach, and he's doing the same thing. And Coach Bob McKillop, an amazing Catholic, he goes around to different synagogues on Kristallnacht and Yom HaShoah, speaking about why, as a student of history, he found that very important to do. So if you love art, if you love ballet, I actually think it starts what you're passionate outside of your faith, and then you can bring those passions into it. Growing up in upstate New York, I met other people not like me, not in school, but actually on a baseball field and on a court. And so when you take where you're from, you get to know the other there. When you're standing on first base and you're talking to the opponent, you're just an athlete. And then you're a Muslim, you're a Hindu, you're a Jew, you're a Christian. And I've witnessed it with my own eyes, and I model that way as well. If it starts with a sermon, it's not going to go so far. But the sermon can actually, my sermons come from those experiences, the lived experiences that we are doing. And so I think there's a huge opportunity in the passion worlds and hobbies that we have, whatever clubs that we're doing, to then bring it back into the faith world.
Thank you, Rabbi Sherman.
Phillies, nice, we'll talk.
All right, so now I want to go to Sheikh Drama. Same question. How do we get through to the young people? How do we bring young Jews and young Muslims together for these kinds of conversations to shape the future?
Absolutely. 7 months after 9/11, I realized that the problem we face in the Muslim world all stem from the conflict in the Holy Land, almost 100%. I reached out to the Holocaust Memorial Museum. I spent 1 year trying to convince them to establish a program. And finally, they said yes. And we established a program 23 years ago. 4 schools, 2 Jewish schools, 2 Muslim schools, 5th graders come together, follow a curriculum year-round. They go to the mosque, they go to the synagogue, they go play basketball, they go swimming. They were children, regardless of where they come from. And at the end of the year, they will graduate at the Holocaust Memorial Museum with 2 books that they wrote, a book of artifacts and a book of menu that reflected the food that their parents or grandparents enjoy. That program graduated more young Arabs and Jewish kids in New York than any other program. And you know whose children graduated from it? Israeli diplomats. Israeli former soldiers. And some of them cry, saying that this has never ever happened in our lives. We came from Israel, we know Israel, but to see Arabs, Palestinians, Jordanians, Egyptians, and Yemenis converging to the Holocaust Museum, listening to their children, talking about the friendship with their Jewish children, this never happened, and that is where we should start. Adults, we can talk, but children build natural bond. And I guarantee you, the alumni that we have now, they are friends. The ones that don't like each other, that's natural. But the friends are friends. So let's begin to invest in these children, and then the rest will be history. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'm going to go to Anila. Same question. How do we get through to the youth? How do we bring young people together?
I think for California, since you're all Californians, I have great respect for Cal State Northridge, and I know some of my friends are here. They got so many threats when they invited me to come speak, but they made me come, and they assured me that they'll know everyone's coming. I was not afraid. These are our young people. They have questions. And by the time I had finished speaking, one of the youth, she came to me and she said, so can you tell me, was Hamas ruling Gaza? And I said, yes. She said, did you see it? And I said, yes. That's the extent of education we're giving to our young people, okay? So I think you all have the power to go to your Cal States and UCs, start a program where young people can talk. I myself, I stand here in front of you because a Jewish educator who was my mentor after 9/11 taught me the power of education and the Holocaust education, that it's not about Jewish Muslim, it is about hate. And every child in a classroom or every student that goes on a campus is a potential, can be a victim of hate. He's not cool, he's too nerdy, he's got curly hair, straight hair, black, brown, white. They should learn the power of education when you look at it from the eye of the Holocaust is tremendous. You know, I want to tell a quick story. I know I have my colleague here. When I was attacked after I spoke at the March for Israel rally, it was an international crisis. How could this Muslim woman speak? So on Instagram, people were saying bad things about me and my children, and kids were coming and people were talking about it. A student of mine from 8th grade, because she had seen our curriculum, I taught about hate with my Jewish mentor. Both of us were standing together. That's like the best example you can teach your kids. When my students saw all of this, a Hispanic girl at UCLA, she saw all of that and she said, "Stop saying these nasty things about my teacher." She was the only one who had the courage, because she had seen and she had gone through that entire curriculum, World War II and then the Holocaust. And I felt, in my own school, I felt like they were taking that out. After 20 years of teaching in a California public school, I was being harassed because I wanted to bring a Holocaust survivor to my school and told, we don't have time for that. Well, you didn't have time and money. You stopped all the field trips to the Museum of Tolerance as well. What are you teaching your kids in California? And why aren't the parents speaking up? Why aren't the educators speaking up? I was in a way silenced at school as well, because they didn't want to teach about the Jewish people and how they suffered. In some way, they didn't think the Jewish people deserved for their story to be told. So we've got the problem right there, people. Go and tell your schools, school districts, make sure that you elect people. I know there's somebody running and she's asking for my vote and my endorsement. If you choose to silence that curriculum that teaches tolerance, I'm not going to vote for you, and neither should you. And also at universities and campuses, build bridges, have programs where Muslims, Jews, Christians, everybody can come together and learn to solve. There are so many crises. There's the Coptic Egyptian, okay, there's Turkey, Armenia. There are so many people that want to talk, kids want to talk. Allow them that space, give them that freedom to have a different opinion and to listen to one. And that's up to you all that are here, that have the power and influence in your communities. And I'm here to come to California and jumpstart that program. So let us know. I'm sure we'll all be here. Luai is going to be the coolest speaker and imam. But we're here, and there are many more. So I want to tell you, this is just a sampling of the greatest Muslims that I love so much, who have stood on the side of right, of history and truth. But there are many more.
Thank you, Anila. Lue, briefly.
So,
how do we get through to the kids?
Education also, and back to the point that I said, gamification. Very important, and now with the use of AI, it's very important to bring that. But also, honestly, education, because I remember when I grew up as a kid, I didn't have any Jewish friends. I didn't meet, by the way, the first time I ever met a Jew in my life was in 2010, wow, in Paris, France. So I lived all my life in Saudi Arabia. I didn't experience any Jewish friend. So for me, that was the first encounter. We want to have these encounters at an earlier age, and I said that in one of my speeches last week in Vegas. So if we do this, I believe we can have better results. And this is why I always say, and I will conclude with that, the most important thing in Gaza right now, far more important than demilitarization, is de-radicalization. And that starts with schools.
Thank you. Soraya.
So I kind of feel I'm very equipped to answer this question. I have 2 kids in college. I think we all need to reset our buttons. We embrace the enormity of this problem, where actually we have to reach the critical mass. That means we have to stay focused and work with the willing. Something that I found very lacking, I don't want to generalize, is that the YMCAs, the YMBAs, the HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities, there are a lot of people out there, youth out there, who need to be tapped. You can invite them for a Sabbath. I mean, don't wait for your synagogue. I think synagogue rabbi is more interested in continuation, whereas people like us congregants, we have to be interested in movements. You know, how can we support the synagogue rather than wait for the synagogue to tell us what to do? So I would say, send your children to the YMBA. That's where they're going to build new friendships, not only at the Jewish day school. So I hope that's not offensive, but relationship.
You can send them to Sinai Temple too. We'll do it together.
Yeah, relationship will become critical. Invite college students to a Sabbath, and there's so much we can do. But the question is, have we begun? Are we willing to begin? Take that one small step, and that's where we can 100%. When my son was bullied, I built one of the largest interfaith solidarity networks in the San Fernando Valley with my Jewish friends. Thousands of people marched with us. To this day, I stepped down as the president because I was traveling some. Daniel Tam, I saw the other day, he's seated with the mayor discussing, representing the Interfaith Solidarity Network that we built. So we want to lay strong claim to our community, to our country, to our cities, so that nobody comes to mess with us. Thank you.
Thank you. So the last respondent to this question, this goes to Rabbi Peter Levy with ADL. But Peter, I'm wondering, because of your role at ADL, perhaps you could also share some of what ADL is doing with youth programming and in the classroom to address some of this issue.
Yeah, so, and then I want to answer the question. Right, ADL, look, we're an institution, so we're doing lots of things, right? So things that we can do as an institution is we can hold social media companies accountable, because social media companies are the ones that are disinforming the young generation, creating this. Statistically, we also know that this new generation is 4 times more likely to believe in conspiracy theories. And we know that conspiracy theory thinking, zero-thumb thinking, that someone's right and someone's wrong, and there's no in-between, and lack of social sanctioning, where it's okay to be a hater, right? That those 3 things are all massively up in the young generation, and all of this contributes to hostile environments for our kids in schools. So, for example, we have hundreds of schools in California that are No Place for Hate, where we have a No Place for Hate initiative, where schools they can address faith or body image or sexism or anything they want. They know their communities to really address through year-long programming, all-school programming, to really address hate issues. We have incredible resources for teachers and educators, from lessons plans to discussion topics. We actually created our own AI space for Jewish identity and teaching the Holocaust that is clean, right? That is 100% vetted, because if you use the commercial ones that are out there, you're going to get the bias built in. So to help, and this is only is accessible for educators, so that they can access accurate information. Because if you use your general AI to how to teach about the Holocaust, you'll actually get lesson plans that include Holocaust denial and Holocaust distortion from organizations that are putting those curriculums actually through their professional associations of like social studies here in the US. So there are problems out there. So that's what we're doing as an institution. That's how we're working with things. But also we got to break bread together. Let me tell you a program idea that I had that I thought was the best idea that completely failed. Right? It was called the Hanukkah Ramadan Exchange. And we thought it would be great. We would take from the mosque and the synagogue, we would find families with similar demographics, with kids the same age, and the Jewish family would host that Muslim family just one-on-one in their home for one of the nights of Hanukkah, and the Muslim family would host the Jewish family for one of the nights for iftar, for breaking the fast on Ramadan. And we figured this would be great, and well, it turns out no one wants to bring people that they really don't know, invite them into their house. They're too embarrassed to have host. So it turned out it was a flop. We can get 7 families that were willing to do it. But mine was one of them. And here's where the kinship that happened. you heard about the Middle East, maybe people are killing each other there. But what happened here is we had teenage kids that did not want to be there from both families. So what did they do? They were gamers. So they went and retreated and gamed each other. And for months afterwards, my kid and one of their kids would meet online, where a Jew and a Muslim would kill each other online, but develop a nice friendship.
Thank you. Please, a round of applause for our amazing panelists. So we're going to move into the final part of our program now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask all of the panelists, you're excused from the stage except for Rabbi Levy and Sheikh Musa. And then I'm going to call up, we have our Christian community representative, and I want to make sure sorry? I heard some. The microphone keeps rolling off. Oh, thank you. We'll fix that. All right, so we're going to shift to the breaking bread piece of our program. This is, sorry, let me just get my notes. And Pastor, if you could please come join us on the stage. You know, as we come to a close, we want to ground ourselves in something deeper. We've heard important perspectives. We've engaged across differences. And now we're going to close in a way that reflects the traditions that bring so many of us here. In this unique moment when Ramadan, Palm Sunday, and Passover generally seasonally converge. Please join over here, yes. We're reminded of something shared, a call to reflection, to humility, to renewal, not just in what we say, but how we show up for one another. So before we conclude, we're going to honor those traditions together. So first, I'm going to ask Rabbi Peter Levy to lead us in Motzi. Then we're going to have Reverend June Pally offer us grace. And then finally, we will have Sheikh Musa Drama join us to offer us a Muslim dua prayer. So Rabbi Levy, please. All right, we're going to have everyone join around the challah.
I have a beautiful challah here, and I braided this myself for Shabbat. It's got 4 braids. This is a 4-braid one, right, for Christians, Muslims, Jews, and everyone else. And it's all braided together because it's breaking bread together is how we come together when we eat and we tell our stories. And this is how we bond, and this is how we move forward. The Jewish blessing is simple. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Praise to you, Adonai, ruler of the universe, who brings bread from the ground. Even though bread doesn't really come from the ground, wheat does. And it has to be winnowed and milled and sifted and mixed with other things. So it's a lot that goes in. So, but God is what makes it possible for all of us to put all our efforts in to create something beautiful and tasty.
I got mine. Okay. Yeah, so one of our shortest yet most profound prayers goes this way. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. Oh Allah, give us the best in this life and the best hereafter, and protect us from Satan who mislead people. Amen.
Yes, so I love the theme of this program. I had no idea, and I thank my good friend Soraya. I feel really inadequate when I listen to all of these wonderful speakers, and I'm just glad that I'm just here to give a blessing. One of the easiest, the shortest blessing that we give is from the New Testament, which says, "May the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all now and always." Amen.
So let's all put our hands on. Amen.
Oh, you got it. Hey, how about the rest of it? Want to thank our faith leaders. And the one thing that I think we all can see that runs common, that some of us may never have heard the cultural, blessings over bread. And that's something that runs through all of our faith traditions, is gratitude for the gifts we've been given, but it's also gratitude for each other. And we know from having sat at Thanksgiving, the word thanks is in Thanksgiving for a reason. Yet we don't always agree, right, folks, that with everyone who comes to our Thanksgiving tables, or possibly iftar or on Easter Sunday. But one thing we do share is the same table, right? And let's take away from today maybe a little of that we shouldn't be afraid of other faiths. We should embrace everybody. And, it actually feels pretty good having this. And thank you, faith leaders, very much. Now, I would be remiss if I don't bring one thing up, because this program, we're about to end it today, but it's called A New Dawn. And a new dawn means a new beginning. And I think what we've heard today, hopefully it has also inspired a lot of us to revisit and to rethink some of our biases that we've had, that we can take to friends and others and say, it's time, everybody, that we come together. So miracles happen. I think this program was a little bit of a miracle, and we need to I want to thank our sponsors and make a point of this. AMMWEC is the presenting sponsor, and do we have a slide on AMMWEC? And our lead sponsor, you've heard from both Anila, who is the president of, and lead sponsor ADL. I don't think this program would have been there had ADL not been there with AMMWEC. And we want to thank our other sponsors too. County Supervisor Lindsay Horvath, Council Member Bob Blumenfeld, the Iranian American Jewish Federation, and I can't leave out Factors Deli. It's one of my favorite delis, okay? So maybe all of us have been there. And it's worth going to Factors. Factors has supported us with this, but all of these. And it really wasn't easy, but we got community grants from the government agencies, and we're thankful and have gratitude for that. So what you heard today is social media, misinformation, disinformation. These voices that you've heard today have been silenced in many ways by the propagandists on the other side. And the news media takes hold of it, and everyone thinks that's the way it is. But it isn't. And for us to perhaps have a breaking bread movement, it started, I mentioned to everyone, it's a germ of an idea. Look how this has grown, and it's going to continue to grow. So to make it grow, and you may have heard this from other events you're at, but we really need your help, okay? At the back of your program, take this home with you. We take Zelle, we take checks, and even gold memes, I mean, we'll take it all. I mean, just whatever it takes to get this to happen. And so the gold meme coins, okay. And, but there's just so much one can do. Take a look. We have our contact us. If you have questions or your friends have questions, we want to engage. If people disagree with us, have them send questions to us. No one was harmed by a question, okay? And that's what we should be, engaging everyone in the greater dialogue. And as far as maybe after today, a little generosity, donating via Zelle will help us amplify our message in social media. We are going to hopefully have all our speakers. We're going to present your questions that weren't answered, and then we're going to, if you gave us your emails, we're going to ask them to record a social media message, and then we'll send them to you, and let's get this out there, that these voices are not going to be silenced anymore, and we're going to hear them and hear all of us and break bread together. David, do you have any final words for our folks here? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Alan. I just want to acknowledge that this entire event really was Alan's vision, so please, a round of applause. And as we close, I just want to leave us with something enduring. You know, from the earliest days of this country, it's really been based on a simple idea: e pluribus unum, out of many one, not sameness, not uniformity, but the belief that people of different faiths and backgrounds can still build something shared and stronger together. In 1790, George Washington wrote to the Hebrew congregation in Newport, speaking of a country where the children of the stock of Abraham would live in safety and dignity, where each could sit under their own vine and fig tree, and there shall be none to make them afraid. That promise is not self-executing. It must be chosen, it must be built, it must be protected. At ADL, that's our work every day, fighting anti-Semitism, building alliances, and creating spaces like this one where people come together, not in spite of our differences, but because of them. That's the work, that's the opportunity, and that's the responsibility we carry from this room. So thank you for being here. We invite you to continue the conversation in the foyer, to meet one another, to connect, and to carry this forward. Thank you, and have a great afternoon.